Okay, so I guess we can start. Um, Hello everyone. We meet again with Kraken and Kazimir Tech, and we have two new teams here: FTC Stanislas and FTC 8404. Glad you're here. Yesterday we established a theme for today's meeting, and it was this year's strategies, as I remember. Um, I asked some teams to prepare some videos, some photos of their past robots, so we can have a base of discussion. Uh, which part do you want to start with? Autonomy, drive control period. If you have any preferences.
I guess we can start with autonomous.
Okay. Did anyone prepare anything? And as I saw, Kraken wants to discuss about the pros and cons about odometry and range sensors and distance sensors. Is that right?
Yeah, we have several videos of like past ways of doing odometry and how we found them, like like how we've used them, both dead wheels and range sensors.
Can you share screen one of them and have a bit of discussion?
I think Corey will do that.
Yep. Give me a second. Hang on, let me find the file.
Let us say something about this year, about our year. Um, we are a team made up of new buys, and we don't really know odometry and range sensors so well. We try to document ourselves. We plan this year to use odometry without range sensors. We plan to use Roadrunner library from GitHub. Uh, we inspired ourselves from the last year's robot, and may I present a second.
Can I share the videos?
Yes, clearly.
Can you see the video?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is from Relic Recovery. This is a version of odometry that only uses range sensors to map out where it is on the field. There are both disadvantages and advantages to that. Some of the disadvantages are if there's another robot in the way, it will cause it to not quite work because there's something blocking the range sensors from seeing the wall. So something to combat that is this, which is odometry that only uses dead wheel encoders to map out where it is. The issues with this, though, can be that over time, the error accumulates from it being off, not quite in the right position. And over enough time, it can become a big enough error that it doesn't quite work right to map out where you are in the field. And then the last way to do it, which fixes or can help fix both of those problems, is you can do something like this. So as it drives, it's using the dead wheel encoders, but when it gets to its position over by where it's dropping the sky stones, it uses range sensors to reset the dead wheels and map where it is, because we know that when it's in that position, there's no way for another robot to be in the way. So we can reliably use range sensors to reset the dead wheels.
I just wanted to say something about the first one because I thought someone was confused. The first relic, the first video from Relic Recovery, that was on a modified field from a tournament that's held in Chicago, where they modified the field every year to make it more difficult.
For the last year's Skystone competition, we actually chose another strategy. We used only odometry. Not we, our actual mentors, and we're glad we have them. If we didn't have them, we now wouldn't know anything we know at all, like odometry and Fusion 360. So may I present our last year robot with its odometry. It wasn't actually that fast. We planned to make it faster, but in the COVID-19 pandemic, we didn't have enough time, so we abandoned the Skystone robot. It only uses odometry, no range sensors, so there isn't that. As you can clearly see, not the fastest robot of all time, but it was effective. What are actually the advantages of using range sensors or combining? As I'm not really, I don't really know. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using range sensors?
So one of the things with actually encoders is over time the error builds up because you have no way of knowing actually where you are. Whereas with range sensors, it's doing it relative to where you currently are, not to where you've been. So you're able to get a more real-time number because the robot uses its current location rather than building off of its starting location. So that really helps because then you don't have the error of, say, the encoders slip or something. The range sensors can't do that because they measure the distance in real time. But the disadvantages can be that if anything gets in the way, it's going to cause the values from them to spike, and it's really going to mess with where you are because the robot's going to think that it's way closer to something than it really is, which can cause problems.
Oh, I see. So you basically have exact numbers with range sensors, while with odometry you only have a relative position, so you're not quite clear. Okay. So, and the disadvantage would be that if someone gets in the way, it interrupts. Okay, thank you. We wanted also to discuss about this year's design, robot design. We actually had a previous design for the intake. Toma, please, can you share screen and...
Sure, 1 second.
Speaking of autonomy, do you plan to use the same odometry and range sensors and distance sensors this year too?
We are currently working on redesigning the odometry wheel setup, and we've been working on improving it.
So this was our plan for the intake system of this year's robot. We put the motor that would power the shafts to rotate on top of a channel in the middle of the robot, and yeah, this was the idea, our first idea.
But then we realized that we didn't have any space left for the launcher, so we abandoned this idea and tried something new. We aren't really ready with it, so we can't show it. That would be the intake, our intake. How do you plan to make the intake? I mean, with wheels, I guess.
What he means is how do you plan to take inside the robot the discs and where to stack them exactly?
Our current plan is actually very similar to what you guys have. It's a bit more complicated, which obviously adds more points of failures. But I feel like generally we found that just having a large intake is probably gonna be the best for this year, and having forward facing makes it easier driving, and just having we are actually doing something very similar with motor located over here, and we're just driving large wheels. You could also have with that design you had there, you could have just put you guys for the second thing is the wheels. If you got the first wheels spinning the rings, spinning fast enough, and you got the rings up to the second set of wheels, if those wheels are dead and you can just and they're compressed enough, you could have just you can use that as like a holding system, in that the rings are kind of stuck underneath the second layer of wheels, and then if you turn on that motor, you can bring them up. But that necessitates using two motors for your intake and like holding system. I've also seen some people use like a holding cell, all the rings fall into a cylinder that's just wide enough, and then you can use a servo to like tip them out or something. That's also a popular design. That of course adds some difficulty. There's also been like talk of a design that uses like a conveyor system. So instead of wheels, you use like some type of movable, like that has like some grip, so like timing belts, but flipped inside out, so that there's rigid on one side, so it creates friction and pushes them. I've seen lots of designs, and we've talked about lots of designs. Currently, we're working on two different designs. Working on a design that's based around like a pass-through bot, which is kind of similar to what you guys were designing, and we're talking about wraparound bot, which is more of the holding cell idea.
Quick question. What type of ejection mechanism do you plan on using?
We're using a flywheel, just a really fast spinning wheel, and just when the ring comes in contact with it, it'll just push it through.
They all sound really interesting.
What have the other teams done for the intake part of the robot?
Or any thoughts on how they should do it?
Hi, I'd like to share. I'm from Team Quicksilver 8404. So we've been using the green compliant wheels from Andy Mark for our intake, and they've been pretty efficient for us. I think our intakes for our rings are less than a second from intake to our hopper system, and we're just trying out different kind of wheels right now since we've pretty much finalized our design. We're trying out all the different colors of wheels and maybe different sorts of wheels like omnis and potentially mecanums for our intake. So I think a wheeled intake is the best idea. I have not seen an implementation of the belt system that has worked yet, but I hope to see some teams that accomplish that as well.
Thank you. I've seen on Casimir's social media that they actually finished the robot, and also the intake. How did you think of it? I mean, I know you used 2 cylinders to take it into the robot. Can you detail us more about your process of thinking?
Last year with getting the blocks, we used elastics for the intake, like two gears and then elastics wrapped around them, and it had pretty good grip. So we thought, why not do it again? So we actually use a cylinder with elastics, and then that pushes the ring into the green compliant wheels from AndyMark, and they push them up into another cylinder, and that cylinder goes into ammo storage system, which is then the ring is then pushed out by a servo into the shooter.
I have a video about that. Maybe I can screen share it.
It would be perfect if you could.
Wait. If it is working, wait a minute.
During this break, may I ask FTC Stanislas, how did they approach the intake? Or show us your video.
Hi, I think my teammate, he knows more about the intake stuff, so.
Yeah, so we are still testing different things, but right now we're just using normal wheels to like to get it in the robot. But we're still testing. We don't really know what we're gonna do yet.
Yeah, we're still hesitating a bit and just testing out different things.
Oh, okay, I see. You can show us your video.
Good.
We are now using green wheels, which are very soft, and when a ring gets pushed into them,
and the drills is not final, right? We're gonna put them over it, right? Okay. All right.
So as you see, it's working pretty well for us. It's also really smooth because the rings don't get stuck on a ramp, or it picks the rings up really quickly. So, yeah.
Thank you. Forgot to ask the other teams about this year's autonomy. Are you planning to use odometry, range sensor, distance sensors?
Yeah, so our team, we're using odometry and also range sensors for error mitigation. So last year we used US Digital for our encoders for the odometry. We found that they had a lot of error and lag, so we switched them to the Rev encoders, and we found a lot more success with that. In our games, we usually only need to reset the error once with our range sensors, but we found like the range sensors for the Rev ones to have a little bit more error than we'd like. So we're trying to explore different options right now.
What about Casimir? Can you tell us more about your autonomy or your past autonomies? How you overcome any difficulties, any obstacles?
So this year we are going to use odometry for the first time. We have been working on making computer code, so pure pursuit, so we can code our autonomous on our computers and then implement it to the robot. We're still working on the odometry, but we plan to fix it this week. So.
And FTC Stanislas, do you have any thoughts of?
We are working on odometry as well for first year. So yeah, we're still looking how it works, how to program it and everything. So we're just finding everything out this year.
And last year? Choose?
Last year we just we didn't have odometry or encoders. We just programmed
right.
autonomous.
How do you plan to stack all the rings? I mean, you take it into the robot and then you just throw it, or are you planning to stack them and throw them as a burst? Three, not one. Are you planning to stack them or throw them when you take them? For example, we are planning to stack them, and then we go after the limit, and we throw them one by one. And then we again take 3, stack them, throw them one by one.
Yeah,
So,
we're taking the same approach as you guys. So putting in a hopper that has a max capacity of 3, and then using a servo to push it into the flywheel.
Yeah. So from like a game strategy perspective, it's probably best if you can shoot them all as a burst, because you can basically you're trying to get your cycle time down as low as possible. So how low you want to get down, how low the least amount of time to intake and then least amount of time to shoot. And so what you're trying to do is there'd be a lot more travel time if you had to intake one and then shoot one. So what you're basically trying to do from a perspective is you want to be intake quickly, so that needs a fast drivetrain and a good intake, and then you need to fire quickly, which probably needs you want to be able to like send all of your rings as quickly as possible into your shooting mechanism. So probably a hopper design is superior for that, because then you can either use gravity or servo to just be like ding ding ding, all of the rings just go. And that necessitates like a shooter that is able to keep up the speed necessary to send out the rings. So high in inertia.
Casimir, what do you plan to do?
So we also plan on collecting 3 rings at a time, then driving behind the shooting line and then shooting them one by one. Because our system can't shoot more than 1 ring, and we also have maximum 3 rings in our ammo system, so the storage part.
I have a question for teams. Are you planning to build the intake and outtake structures on the same side or on opposite sides?
We currently have them on the opposite sides.
We've that's basically the difference between a wraparound design in our minds and a pass-through design. So a pass-through design basically means your intake and your shooting mechanism on opposite sides of the robot, and then there's the idea of the wraparound design where it intakes the rings and then it somehow gets the rings to shoot them again the same side. Basically, the main considerations for that is like it depends on your autonomous. So maybe like for some like ways of designing your autonomous, either design could be better The main idea though is that for wraparound, like your worst, if you chose a pass-through design and you're at a competition, like a high-level competition where all 3 robots during teleop are all lined up across that line, and the rings are coming down, and so they're putting down the rings, and they're coming down, and then and you're the only like pass-through design, and everything else is a wraparound. The 3 wraparound are all like don't have to rotate to pick up rings. So they'll go forward, pick up rings, drive right back to the line, shoot. They just keep doing that. You have this turnaround, and therefore you have less overall capacity to like you just have your cycle time is higher than theirs, and so you would probably lose out on speed, and you might lose. There are advantages of pass-through. We found that pass-through designs are actually that hard to drive. Generally, we think it'd be better for the autonomous this year, and that's generally the advantages. Wraparound is probably better this year, but it's hard to tell the truth without seeing like a bunch of competitions.
So will you take the risk of maybe losing some time turning around?
Well, I think we want a wraparound design to work, but I think for everyone, pass-through designs are probably going to be easiest, especially because the wraparound aspect of it just adds more complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to pose. Can I speak? Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to pose a question to David. He said something about being a pass-through being more efficient in autonomous. I'd just like to know more about that because I think we've implemented like a wraparound design and we found that that's really efficient in autonomous. I'd like to know like the other side of it.
Well, that's mostly based on how our autonomous is designed. So we've already planned out our autonomous a lot, just because the programmers have just been very efficient. But if you want to, so the rings that they place down to like tell which quadrant you can put your wobble goal in, those are counted as preloaded, so you can shoot those during the autonomous period. So basically, if you have a wraparound design, there's the added complexity of your to your thing of having to make the robot turn around twice when picking up those rings, because then at least the way ours are oriented, so you go up, you get the job down, the wobble goal, and then you shoot your rings that you already get pre-loaded, and then you drive back and you have to get those. And if it's wraparound, you have to turn the robot around, which it makes it harder for our odometry, versus like if you just back up with a pass-through.
Yeah, so what I have to say about that is, I guess, depending on how powerful you make your shooter, it is possible to just like shoot before you actually touch the stack, the preloaded stack. So that's currently what we're doing. We're just shooting the 3 preloaded ones out, then intaking 3 of the ones that are in there, shooting, and then just keeping the last one. So if anyone is able to kind of shoot that far, I think that's probably the most efficient way to do a autonomous.
And we never thought about that. That's an interesting idea that we'll have to test.
Well, our shooter actually, it has enough power to shoot from the back of the field, but we angled it so that the angle's just right for standing just before the line. And we don't really have a system to adjust the angle. Maybe that's a thing we'll be doing, but probably not.
Might want to try voltage regulation on the motor that's driving the flywheel, and try to tune that.
Yeah, we found out that for our design, 4,600 RPM was the optimal speed, like not too fast, not too slow, because it corrects itself the faster it goes, but if it goes too fast, the ring becomes very wobbly while it flies to the goal.
So when you're shooting from the back, I'm just wondering, like, is it going too high or too low?
The angle we have it at now, it shoots in the goal from the middle, and if we move it to the back, it shoots higher actually. So,
Yeah, so you could try
because the
lowering
ring
your
is still the ring is still elevating, so it gets way higher.
Yeah, also for the driver control period, I think it's better to have a shooter that can shoot from like the shooting line instead of a shooter that can shoot from the back, the wall of the field, because the rings get back from the tower goals, so then you have a faster cycle time if you can shoot from the line.
Do you plan to make it, I mean, to shoot it by chance, by the eye, or do you plan it to score from wherever you are on the field?
I think for everyone, having like, I know, I don't know how much you guys know about Bloom 3, but I assume you've seen them. Like, not this year, but the year ago, they basically made a turret design for balls. So I bet if I think turret designs are perfectly like workable in FTC, but their complexity is extreme, and I don't think we're gonna see anything that's like truly that good this year. The most I think most people do is angular and speed choice, but I think the majority of teams will just stick up with a normal. They'll just have to line up at a specific point at every time just to shoot. I think that's gonna be like 99% of teams.
Also, what do you think about gluten-free's robot? What are the pros and cons of what they did? Do you think it's a robot that can score high, relatively high?
What do you think is the limit of the autonomy? I mean, possibly the max score of the autonomy, in your opinion?
I'll answer Alex's question. I think at Worlds, especially since it's in August this year, pretty much a majority of teams will be scoring the max, just because the max is actually quite reasonable. I wouldn't be surprised at like qualifications for Worlds competitions. We're going to be seeing a lot of max scoring autonomouses. I think it's just because normally the big limit with autonomouses is that there is no real limit of how many you can pick up of a material and score it. There was one last year, but it was very difficult to reach. This year it's much more reasonable. The main I think limiter for teams is just having a consistent intake that works well on stacked. I think that it might be the one problem I can see is that maybe teams don't design their intakes well for being able to handle like a 3 stack of rings, and that might cause like a few jam ups. But I think that's a mechanical problem that can be solved kind of easily.
Yeah, we also thought about that. So for us, we thought like if we had a like we make the front of the intake like 1 ring high, and the robot drives to the stack. It spreads the rings like over the field, so we can pick them up one by one instead of the whole stack. So mechanically, I think that's a solution to that problem.
Do you use a camera for seeing how many rings are in the starter stack?
We use a camera to see how many rings are in the starter stack. Yes.
Okay. And for the intake, the Andy Mark wheels, the green ones, are the softest, if I'm right. Do you have do you tested the Gecko wheel from Gobilda for intake or something like that? Because we've ordered some to see how they compare and see what's the best wheel for the intake.
I honestly, I can't remember. I think most teams are just going to use the green wheels. Seem to work fine for intaking for a lot of teams, especially since as you spin them, they enlarge a little bit. So that's good for like trying to compress into the ring. I think the hardest. I think part of it is that you want the. I think it's mostly about a size problem of like getting the wheels exactly like pressing into the rings enough that they don't push them too far into the ground that they won't be able to slide, while being able to actually touch the rings with enough, turn enough rotational momentum into force into the rings to actually push them up whatever intake you have. We've tried. I think we've tried green wheels. Those work. If you position them right. I don't think we've tried to go wheel to wheels.
What about the other teams? Do they agree, or do they have any other opinions about the score, about those rings stacked up, 3 rings from the beginning of each match, or some matches?
Sorry, my sister interrupted me. What did you say?
About the high score of the autonomy, do you think is reasonable? Do you think you can achieve the max score, or do you think it isn't that reasonable? And what about those 3 rings stacked up at the beginning of the match? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that it's reasonable to get the max score in the autonomous. But the intake we have right now, we tested and it handles actually quite good with stacked rings, so we can just take them in one by one if they are stacked on each other.
Yeah, so actually it's 4 rings, the max. And for us, we focused on making the intake as wide as possible. So it's like the intake is very reliable and also pretty easy to control during drive control periods. So, and also that in the autonomous we will not miss like the rings in the stack. So yeah.
What about the remote competition? How do you deal with the cameras? Will you use a laparoscopic camera for the competition? The remote competition, of course.
Can you rephrase your question? I didn't quite hear you.
So how do you deal with all the cameras for remote competition? I mean, the robot must be seen from all the pods. Are you going to use any special camera? I mean, just for filming, not match related.
Okay, first has some. The first is pretty much left up recording to each individual state in the United States. We don't plan on attending any remote competitions if we can help it, because first has not required you record your matches in United States. That's why we're going to them, because there's a lot of fears of teams abusing this and cheating and just entering scores that are unreasonable. So that's a present fear in the United States. That's why teams are trying to avoid them if they can. There's a little bit of talk of recording it if we are forced to do it. There's talk of forcing like teams like coming together and like, hey, we all have to record so we know no one's cheating. But that wouldn't be through first. That would be like an informal event between teams.
What about Netherlands? Do you plan to participate in remote competition, or do you have to?
So in the Netherlands, they haven't yet decided if they're going to do remote events or traditional events, because we still have till February, so we haven't thought about playing remote events.
As I thought, you need two autonomy pods. If you are on a remote competition, you need one autonomy pod. If you are on a live competition, you need another autonomy pod. Is that right? I mean, they are different, so that would be something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I think the difference is between picking up two wobble goals instead of one, and also in a remote event you have more space in the autonomous period, so you can drive around the field. But at a traditional event you have to focus on like making space for the alliance partner and making the robot not interfere with the other robot.
And regardless of the event being remote or not, how will you be approaching the scoring, the competition from the scoring point of view? I mean, do you have any strategy to maximize your score?
I think pretty much it's go for the high goal and the power shots when they're available. I feel like the strategy this year is pretty simple. It's mostly about just being the best spot on the field, of like being the fastest and being the best at shooting. Aside from that, I don't feel like there's a large degree of strategy that has become apparent yet. It might become more obvious as the season goes on. Maybe like at Worlds, we see some type of defense of trying to like intake rings in a way that makes it harder for your opponent to intake. But we'll see. I feel like the game was designed kind of simply for the fact that this is a COVID environment. They wanted it to be easy to do with a single team playing on a field. So they didn't put they didn't want to put too much emphasis on like interaction between the two alliances.
Yeah, I agree. What about the other teams? Quicksilver.
Relating to our live streams, or relating to matches, according what David said earlier, I think, when he talked about teams coming together and having live streams of their matches to make sure no one is cheating, we're not really doing that, but we're doing live streams on our own on our Twitch. And we've recently had on Friday a live stream of a practice scrimmage.
Do you plan to use those from the last part of the game? Do you plan to use those rings to score them in the tower goal, or do you plan to put them on the wobble goal and throw the wobble goal between the fences? What's your approach?
For us, a week after the kickoff, we already decided that putting the rings onto the wobble goals is like very bad to do, because you can just also score them in the tower goals or shoot the power shots, and you have to make a other system for that. You can't really use the shooter or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, what about what about the scoring? I mean, there are those power shots and the tower goal. Which would you go for? A power shot, one power shot, or a power shot or a tower goal? The highest tower goal. What would be your approach? And in your opinion, is it more difficult to just score a power shot, or I mean, would you risk it to score a power shot, or would you go safe with the tower goal?
So there's a couple of considerations to think about this year. Based on the ranking system, end game points are more valuable this year compared to previous years, because it ties into your tiebreaker points. So that's obviously a consideration. So getting just more points in the end game is even more important, especially if you're like neck and neck with another team. There's also while I think it's also kind of based on like how accurate you guys have gone with your power shots, because it's something you should be testing throughout your drivers practices. So your robot should be finished hopefully like a couple, like 2 to 3 weeks before your competition, and it should be all autonomous and drivers practice from there and doing notebook. So you should be able to be like, okay, we can practice the power shot now. Let's see how good our shooter is at getting them consistently. If you're able to get them pretty consistently, and there's like you can do the math on it yourself, but you can be like, okay, this is our percentage chance of getting a high goal. This is our percentage chance of getting power shot. You can multiply them. It's like the points per power shot times our chance, and our percentage chance of getting a high goal times the points they're worth. And you can be like, okay, which one's worth more points? And then you can just choose. It's all testing, but you should, if the robot comes together quickly enough, it's something to be worth looking into to know for those final moments. Or if you're behind in a competition, maybe it's just worth to go for power shots. It's like, if we're behind by this amount of margin, we can actually might be able to catch up if we hit these power shots better than they do.
Yeah, you're right. Anyone has another opinion or want to add something to what David said?
For us, I think we are planning to first make the autonomous just shoot in the high goal, because we want to have a really reliable autonomous. So power shots, I think we will do that for our for the championships, but not for the league meets. Also, the end game is very powerful. I think we will preload rings just before the end game, so we can shoot the power shots. Yeah. And also, the cycle time is really important this year.
Okay. I think we are done with the technical part, so let's get to marketing. I give the word to Laura, as she's the leader at marketing.
I would like to talk with you about marketing for this year, but also the outreach and all in all the engineering portfolio, which is the novelty this season. Due to the COVID situation, I think the outreach is the most affected. Like, we have limited options from last seasons and we have to change our perspective.
what kind of outreach event did you do, or are you planning? And what do you think their impact is this year? It changed a little bit.
So I'll just give a basic rundown on. So we haven't done a lot of outreach this year, we have to admit. But I think it also depends on like your COVID numbers. So right now we're at a high point for our state. It seems COVID seems to, at least around here, like fluctuate a little bit of like goes up for a high, then everything gets shut down, and then it goes down, and then everything gets reopened up, and it goes up again. So there is kind of a consideration of when is it like even remotely safe to have any kind of meeting with other people. So that's something we worry about over here is like when are COVID numbers going to be down, when are they going to be up? Because the government doesn't the citizens here don't want to keep the everything closed down for long enough to fully eradicate it, but they want the numbers to go down enough that they feel somewhat safe to go out. So we have to take that into consideration of when we can plan. So like if there's open air, we were planning on doing something for like an open air festival, and we were gonna have a booth there and stay distance from everyone and try and do something like that when the COVID numbers were down. But then everyone in our team got quarantined, so that didn't happen. You can still talk to businesses. Most people reach out to businesses for sponsorship, but you can also reach out to them for mentorship, which is really important, especially this year, especially since in the engineering portfolio, it's specifically one of the things it says for Think Award is specifically you want to talk about how you get your mentors. So if you can put in there, we go off and we Zoomed, or we had some virtual meeting with engineers at such and such business about our robot, and we wanted to ask some questions. So maybe there's a local conveyor belt company in here, so we want to talk to them about conveyor systems. We're emailing them currently and trying to get that to happen. So that's something you can do. You can still mentor teams over Zoom. If like you have FL teams, you can't meet with them in person, but you can definitely be like, hey, if you want us to show us your presentation for your thing, you can do that over line. You can teach people how to code over Zoom. It's hard to teach them. You can teach them CAD. You can't really teach them like how to put parts together, but you can give them suggestions for what to build. You can still. That's like the majority of the outreach you can do. Social media, of course, is very powerful these times because a lot of people, especially new teams, are looking for answers or of what to do. So videos are going to get more views than usual because they can't really meet up with other teams. Yeah, that's what I would say you can really do for outreach. Mostly just try and get on Zooms with different groups of people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what we are doing now, and we thank you for your presence. The idea with the sponsors and mentors is awesome, but I would like to hear the other team opinion and strategy on this part.
This year's approach.
Our Team Quicksilver has been holding these workshops that kids can sign up to, and they're kind of related to robotics concepts. So the age range is probably 10 to 13. So we can teach them robotics related concepts online or through simulations.
We are thinking of going online with children from elementary schools. Like before we went there in person with the robot, but now we may go in Zoom meetings with them during school hours maybe to have an extracurricular and just present them this part of the competition. Now it's online. Do you think this is possible also for you?
how do you plan to get your funds? As David said, it's a tough situation, and there are some difficulties. So, do you plan to take the parts from the last robot and use them this year? Do you plan to, I don't know, call some sponsors, or how do you plan to make all those to get all those money?
So we're a very fortunate team located in a very fortunate part of Wisconsin. We come out from a very well-off area. Generally, so the state puts out very nice grants that we sign up for, and we get a large part of our funding that way. The traditionally sponsorships generally make up the rest of our is like that, and like personal donations from families around us. So like we reach out to a family, we reach out to the businesses that our parents work at. Those generally provide most of our funds. This year, of course, with the downturn economy, we're trying not to stress that so much, and we've traditionally like between the grants from the state, which are consistent, and traditionally the fact that we've gotten a lot of parts since we're such a veteran team, we generally feel like we're not really worried about right now. We're still reaching out for funds because it's good for Notebook, honestly, to say you're getting sponsored by companies. But yeah, we're still. It's mostly just it's like as reach out to as many. The more you reach out, the more likely you're gonna happen upon someone who's willing to say yes. That's kind of our philosophy. If we keep sending emails, we keep calling, eventually someone will be like, hey, what the heck, I have a couple $100 just lying around that I'm willing to donate. Especially if in the United States, we're a nonprofit, and so that affects taxes. So, yeah.
Regarding the engineering portfolio, now going back to the technical part, do you plan on having the evolution of the robot like in time through the season, or just the overview of the final version that you present in the competition?
So for us, it's still a kind of an active debate in my mind, since I'm in charge of this, of whether we should do evolution or just the overview. The problem with evolution is that it'll take up more pages, and there's a lot of content you have to cover in the engineering portfolio in 15 pages, especially for the Think Award. There's a lot of things that they said you could cover this, but we all know if you could, there's going to be some team that already is gonna do all of them. So you yourself have to cover all of them, which will be difficult, especially with the page limit. So we're going to have to be very space efficient. I have a feeling that we're probably going to do something like a mix of the two. So like, this is our final part, and like a CAD picture of the final part here. But then we're going to have like, these are all the lessons we learned from other parts, and this is why we ended up with this part. So these were all the problems with other parts, and here's our final part that's fixes all of those problems. I feel like that's the best way to cover like the most ground.
What about the other teams? How do you plan to make the engineer notebook?
For the moment, I have some examples of how we minimize the versions of the robot. Like we presented in one page for the last year's robot, how we do for each sprint, like the demo version, and then we participate in a Russia competition and the robot there. And after all of that, we presented fully the Spain national robot and how it really was. and this is an overview, and we think that we can use this in the engineering portfolio also. Do you think it's a good approach about it?
As my teammate reminded me, you can also you can always mention the engineering notebook, your full engineering notebook in the engineering portfolio, because that's something you should do, because one of the things that they want you to do is to reference your engineering notebook, because that meets the requirement of makes the judges wants to look at your actual engineering notebook. So that's something important. I think your idea was for minimizing that's all right. The one thing I would notice is you put a lot of emphasis on like the dimensions and like the parts of the robot, but you could put I feel like you could have put more I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't think the judges care so much about like the exact dimensions of the robot or how much it weighs. If the robot's heavy is an important consideration, you can put the robot weighs so and so, and that's good because we want to be able to not be pushed around. But I think there's more emphasis on like, why is this robot good or bad? It's like that's more important overall to explain to the judges. Is this robot good? Is this robot bad? What needs to be changed to make it better?
Yeah, I also think that the thinking process of building the robot is more important than like the final product. So I think we will also do that for the engineering notebook and the portfolio.
We in Romania are really concentrated on the portfolio because we are sure that we will have only remote events, and for the judging period we will use it only that. Only in exceptional cases may the judges look for the notebook, and that's why we concentrate that much on the portfolio. Thanks for your advice.
Yeah, that's an acceptable strategy. Here in the States, it looks like it's probably, I think events are gonna be moved back before they're made remote, most likely. So there's talk of events maybe happening in spring. So we're planning on them looking at our notebook just because first off, that's just true. It's good practice for the new members for next year for them to make a notebook. And second off, we just think it's a high likelihood that they'll look at our engineering notebooks, but we might be wrong. It's kind of up in the air, but you never know.
Yeah, we're still waiting for information too. Regarding the portfolio, are you thinking of putting the team details and describing each team member like last year's, or are you going to dive right in because it gets a lot of space?
So I'm trying to remember if it's Motivate or Connect. Yeah, so Connect Award, the portfolio must include a team plan that covers the team's goals for the development of each team member's skills. That's a direct quote from the game manual part 1. So when we're looking at that, and my first thought is that you don't have to cover each team member in depth. You can just put their first name, the role on their team, and what skills they have and what they're trying to develop. And then you can put at the end a check mark if they develop them or if they're developing them. That doesn't have to take up a lot of space, especially if you were able to make a very space efficient table or something like that. It's all about formatting, but I feel like you can probably get away if you have I don't know how many members you have on your team. It looks like a lot, but I feel like you're able to do that. I think you should definitely cover it. You don't have to cover them they're like their favorite likes or anything. You just have to, you can keep it, but make sure you're meeting the requirements.
Yeah. I would like to see what our other teams are thinking about this. and how they approach the engineering portfolio. This part regarding the awards, are they concentrating on some part?
Are you concentrating on any award, or do you think that this year will be an easier fight for, I don't know, Think or Inspire award or Connect award? What's your opinion?
Mhm.
So far as I'm aware, we've been focusing more on the notebook rather than the portfolio for now. Because as David said as well, our events are more likely to be placed backwards rather than become remote. And as far as awards concerned, we would be focusing, well, we would of course be trying for the Inspire Award, but we would mainly be focusing on improving our team and just trying the best we can.
The part about going for certain awards, where our team has consistently done pretty well at awards. In like the last 2 years, we've been gotten like third place Inspire at our states. So we wanna get up to first place Inspire and use that to advance out of the state competition. Generally because we felt that that we're of that quality. So you basically, if you're going for Inspire, you're basically going for all awards. We try and hold ourselves to that level of quality. So yeah, because in Wisconsin, pretty much you can only either be winning Alliance captain or you can be an Inspire Award winner. There's no other ways to get the worlds from Wisconsin otherwise.
I think for our team, this year's goal is just knowing better the competition, because as we said before, we have a lot of new members and just get some experience. What are your advices for learning more? Like how to improve?
How to improve
You mean
faster as a new
in
buyer?
general or just within the notebook? Or
I think in general, like developing the team as a whole and things like that.
To be honest, the way I found best to improve at everything is to go find like a Discord or another like place on the internet where there's a high concentration of people who are highly dedicated to robots, to FTC and robotics, and then just kind of listen in or not listen in or just watch like their conversations. I found like finding people who are better than you and just seeing I found like finding people who are better than you, and a part of is the first Tech Challenge Discord. It's pretty American. I don't know how many international teams there are on it, but especially I'm on there often, like talking about in like the awards, and like there's always disagreements on like how big should the section be, or how much emphasis you should place something on for awards. I'm in there a lot, and we debate about it, and talking to other people, opposite people who are also as experienced or you or more experienced will always seem to improve you, especially since judging for robotics is kind of hard to tell exactly if you're gonna win. So having more teams like tell you their experience of like how they've placed, I found there's also in like the awards and like the talking about the notebooks, like the smallest section of it, there's a lot more emphasis on like the general robotics design and manufacturing of robots and the programming of them. I know stuff about that, but I don't dive as much into it just because my emphasis has always been on the notebook writing. Yeah.
What was the hardest part you encountered as a new buy in robotics, and how did you overcome it? This applies to technical and non-technical, so.
I think the hardest part for a lot of teams is like, especially new teams, is getting like a good working relationship with other team members together. I think a lot of teams, especially Robotics, seems to inspire either people who are very, very quiet and are very followers, like they like to follow other people, and then you have some very hard-headed leaders who can clash, and then that can create unhealthy team environments. That's a problem I've seen quite a few times, but that might be more of a over here in a states problem. I think also it depends, but teams need to have confidence. Like, you may not always have the best design or know what to do, but you also have to, like, the problem with FTC is that you kind of have to like always be thinking about if you're doing the right thing, but you also have to commit to doing something, especially because like you're starting a competition and you only have so many months to do something. And if you commit to something, at least you'll have something. You have to commit to coming in, you have to commit to programming, you have to commit to building. Even if you suffer a lot of fallbacks and setbacks, you're like, okay, this didn't work, but at least I know it doesn't work anymore. And I can write about that and I can try again. So yeah.
Do you have a date for the regionals? Do you know when are you going to participate?
Ours are in January currently, but they might be moved back because there's a lot of the mentors of the teams are like, well, COVID's really bad right now. We might not want to continue to have these events in January.
Because we wanted to invite you to present your experience with the regionals. After the competition, maybe you could also come again on Zoom and tell us how was the experience, how was everything, the game, the atmosphere. We would be glad if you could do that.
Sure, we're always looking for more ways to help teams. I think most teams are.
Oh, I have a comment relating to David's problem earlier of like clashing team members. What we found in our team is that we hold tryouts if we have new spots open in our team. And through the tryouts, you can definitely pick right people that will contribute and work together well with your existing team members.
In the end, I want to make an announcement. It's an honor for me to announce the hackathon that will take place between 25th to 29th November, organized by Team Ignite and Qube, with the occasion of the European Robotics Week. The hackathon theme this year is Everyday's Issue. What do you have to do, you may ask? We wanted for the participants to use their skills to design an app, a game, a website, or a piece of software that can solve a challenge people face every day. You'll be able to submit your apps up until 28th November, starting from 25th and until 28th November, 12 p.m. East European time. After the voting period ends, we'll announce the winners at the awarding ceremony on our Discord server on November 29th. We also have some prizes for the first place, the second place, and the third place. If this caught your attention, we encourage you to sign up and prepare to have a lot of fun. and we'll see you there. We will give you the link. We'll probably post it on Instagram, so stay tuned for more.
I'm just gonna put the Discord invite link to the Discord I'm a part of, just because I think it's a good resource for all teams. Let's put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions from the Romanian teams, or any other questions from the invited teams? If no, I think we can end here. It was a pleasure to have you with us. It was a pleasure to meet new people, experience new things, find out more about programming, about the engineering notebook, find out more new ideas, and we hope we can see each other another time in the future.
Have a good day, everyone.
Take care.
Have a good day. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Thank you for hosting this.
It was a pleasure to have you with us. Laura, poți să dai...
Suntem noi acum.
Nu cred. Poți să dai kick la cei care au mai rămas de dat. Sau intrăm și ieșim din nou. Ieșim și intrăm din nou.
Mai bine așa.
Ok.